Okay, welcome to part 2 on karma of the houses. In the first video, we talked about how the different houses do not just significate something simple. They are very complex when it comes to astrology. They are wired to more than one thing, and they deliver karma that is not just based on whatever sign sits there or planet. They also give a sort of baseline energy. So we're going to continue the part 2 section of this video or videos. So last time we left off at the 8th house. So now we're going to start with the 9th house, which is the final Dharma house. So interestingly enough, it is the house that gives the energy of the North Node. Okay. This ties with the planet Jupiter itself also giving this energy. I'm going to make a video about that later, but the planets are not just what you read about. There is a lot of, I don't know how to put this, but most people think Mars is only going to be Mars. But when you actually break down the fact that planets all have a birth constellation and their own zodiac chart, I actually talk about this in one of my Saturn transit videos. You will realize that there are a lot of stories and mythologies, or whatever you want to call them, associated with the planets that kind of give you a lot of clues and insights about some of the things that they do. And it's not just going to be Mars is Mars, therefore Mars is cuts. Mars is a lot of things, and so are all the planets. So again, we'll make that in a different video, but keep in mind that whatever is in your 9th house, you also need to consider and look at Rahu or your North Node. Okay. The same is going to be with Jupiter. Jupiter is really going to give results based on the position of Rahu, but that's a little more advanced. If you're a complete beginner, you should pretty much worry about that later. We'll stick to what we're talking about now, which is the houses and the delivery of their energy. Okay, so next house. The 10th house is going to be a house that gives the energy of K2. K2 is the south node. So your K2 is directly tied to your confidence, and your public image and karmas are also going to be tied to this as well, which is why the sun gets strength here. So very important, whenever you begin to read a chart, there are different approaches to reading a chart. Most people are going to kind of mix everything together, but analyzing a chart for the purpose of guiding somebody as an astrologer is going to have a different approach than self-exploration, developing a spiritual practice. So a lot of times, if you're just trying to answer a question for somebody, there's certain hierarchies that you may follow. But if you're long term going to sit down and create a relationship between you and your chart, you actually want to start with K2. Obviously, number one in astrology is always the moon. But once you kind of get a lot of these basic things established, like, oh, what sign is my moon? Where is it? What's its nakshatra? You really want to start building around K2. K2 is your karmas of your past life, like we were saying earlier. And this directly ties it to your confidence, your power, your ability to rise, because the 4th house is the lowest that you could go, while the 10th house is the highest that you can rise. But yeah, we'll get into this later. For now, we're just going through the houses. So the 11th house, when it comes to the 11th house, it's going to be Mars who delivers the energies here. hence why many see the 11th as a house of friends and networking. But also, it's still a pleasure house at the end of the day, right? It's a common house. 3, 7, and 11 are all common houses. This is going to clarify the Mars-Venus conjunction and its association with this in charts. Ooh, spelled that wrong. Let me correct that real quick. Okay, cool. But again, there is a certain combination that's a little infamous in astrology, whether it's Western or Vedic or whatever astrology you use. But yeah, Venus and Mars are a very passionate combination. And whenever it's going through signs or, houses, it kind of makes people kind of try and make it fit or adjust it as they go. But when you look at it from the perspective of a house and you realize, oh, okay, Venus, Mars, and Moon are all tied together via common houses, now you're going to understand that, um, yeah, there's kind of an association between Mars and Venus in relationships and sex because of this right here. It's a whole, philosophy that we don't have time for here. But it's going to help you a lot next time you look at somebody and you see that they have a Mars Venus combination. It's going to tell you that you should look at these houses as well. Or it could also indicate that, their comet trines are very active in their chart. Obviously, you have to consider other things in the chart as well. But finally, we get to the last house. And this house is going to give the delivery of Jupiter. It is an emancipation house or a moksha house. Moksha is basically similar to the concept of enlightenment or nirvana in Buddhism. Maybe you've never heard the word, maybe you're a little more familiar with Buddhism. You could think of it as a salvation house as well. But whatever way you use to understand it, that is the 12th house. It's a lot to do with, spirituality. So Jupiter is going to come into play here, and it's going to be in more than one way, but here's one simple example of that. Naturally, the 12th house is owned by Pisces, which is very interesting because the 12th house is also very important for marriage. Nobody ever talks about this, but the 12th house is absolutely vital for marriage. And it's also where Jupiter and Venus interact in a positive way because traditionally speaking, Jupiter and Venus are kind of not very friendly towards each other, but the exaltation of Venus is actually Pisces, and Jupiter naturally owns Pisces. So, very interesting stuff here. This is also where the theory comes from that your soulmate is actually a past life enemy and rival. It's a very cool story and theory, but basically, many people and sages or philosophers or whatever you want to call them speculate that in astrology, the person that you marry and end up with is a past life enemy or rival that both of you agreed to kind of settle or squash your beef with. When you create a lot of karmas, it can impact your everyday life throughout your incarnations. And as a way to kind of clear these debts to help you progress towards the evolution of your soul and, for spiritual growth, you can enter a contract with this rival of yours and incarnate in the next lifetime as lovers. And then marriage comes into play. So, really, really interesting stuff. I'm definitely going to encourage people to start using the 12th house a lot more when analyzing synastry and marriage. But yes, with this kind of clarifying the picture, it will help you understand why the 12th house is, the salvation house. And obviously, it represents distant lands as well, which is interesting, right? Because again, Jupiter is a big planet when it comes to travel and spirituality, or those overseas and very long pilgrimages where like maybe you're a Catholic or something and you travel from America all the way to Spain to see Santiago de Compostela and all whatever, right? Or maybe you're a let's say you're Hindu but you live in Europe or something, so you want to visit Tiruchendur Murugan Temple. All falls into the category of the 12th house. But once you start layering all these things on top of each other, a very good way to go back to like a home base is to remember that, again, the 12th house is going to deliver things based on Jupiter. And that concludes it. So these are the karmas of the houses. As a little bit of a recap, whenever you're analyzing charts, remember that it's important to also consider that the houses don't just take on the flavor of something sitting there, they also add their own influence, which gives nuance to a chart that is, or gives nuance to reading charts, which is often overlooked in astrology. But thank you guys for watching. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. But yes, thus concludes part 2 of 2 of this video series in regards to the planets and the karmas that they deliver.